let's talk about stuff. Boom. Okay. All right, so we're on our classic Warrior Horses site. And as we know, the Warrior Horses love to use formatting to make things a lot better. And with that, they're very excited about a couple of new features. We saw it a couple of weeks ago. Saw some of the new hover card things, and I wanted to flesh that out a little bit and show a few of the options and show you some of the things you can do with it, the ways you might combine those, and highlight several of our samples for you. So first, what am I talking about? So if we take a look at something like, say, our agents list. All right, we come over here to the agents list, and let's zoom that a bit. All right, woo! Some good zoom in. Okay, so we've got, our standard list. We've got lots of formats on here. Over here, we just have our handler list. It's just a single person field, right? So if we're on here right now, because there's no formatting applied, right, we get this nice hover card effect. It's awesome. It's kind of out of the box. It just works. Now, that's great. And one of the reasons we never applied formatting, right, is because when we format this column, come over here so we can see it with advanced mode. If we do anything really, right? So we just, in this case, we're going to say it's a div, right? And then we're going to say our text content is going to be our, it's going to equal our @current field, right? And then we're going to add a, I don't know, an exclamation point. That sounds exciting, right? And then we got to close that out. Okay. If I preview that, right? No, not current field. Current field dot title. Got a person field here. Ha. There we go. Right. So we've just done this. It's a very basic format. It's not great. You'll notice we suddenly lose all that extra functionality. We just wanted to add an exclamation point. It's no good. Maybe we went over here to our formatting repo, right? Went to our column samples. And we come down here to like a person field, right? So we've got our person, let's see, round image format, right? So we're just going to grab that directly out of GitHub. I'm going to grab that. I'm just going to copy that. If I come back here and I just apply that one, right? Even cooler, right? I'm doing something pretty neat here. And I've got a little title that shows it, but I've lost all of that hover card functionality, which is really, really lame. And so at some point you may decide maybe this isn't worth it, right? Although it looks cool, it's better than just the text that we had before. If I don't have all the details to contact them and, documents they've been working on, I don't really want it. Well, as we saw last week, we can quickly edit that. So if we come over here, we can just add a little something here. I'm just going to copy. Let's see, what do I got? So I grab this just so I can have an updated version of that so we don't show them when they're not supposed to. All right, so if we grab that, all we have to do is add this nice new property, or I could say default hover field. And in this case, I just specify what field I want. Because I want a person field, I can just say @current field. All right, and that's all I have to do. When I preview that, now I've got all that functionality back, which is awesome, right? So now I can apply these really complicated formats. I can do all sorts of stuff. I can conditionally show this, right, if I want to do something different besides just showing the picture. But I don't sacrifice all of the awesome out-of-the-box, default hover card formats. So that's really, really cool. So we definitely like that. All right, so let's take a look here. What else can we do with that, right? Can we go a little further? Sure. Right, we don't have to specify the current field. We can do things like conditionally show who you wanted there, right? If we wanted to show the author, right, we can reference the author field instead, right? So that's the created by. Let's preview that. Let's see. All right, well, the author, I didn't preview. Let's preview that again. Well, maybe they're the same person in this case. But this is how you reference other fields, right? So if you want to get a hover field from somewhere else or you want to conditionally do that, this supports conditional expressions here. So if you wanted to check to say, like, if the person's status, right, if it contains the word dead, right, then show the creator or whatever else you want to do. So the whole idea is you can get a little creative as long as you're specifying the field. That's the key with this one. This is the name of the field you want to do this default hover field with. Okay? So we can go a little further even with that. So let's say we're over on our, let's go over here to our things list, right? So that's cool, but what about where we've got this kind of face pile? We've shown this before. This is one of our more complicated formats because it's using an iterator with the for each, right? Can we get that same functionality here? Well, if we come in here and we go to column settings and we format this column, again, we'll scoot that over a bit. All right, you can see, and again, we've got a whole video series just on this one, not a video, just a video dedicated to this, which explains the for each and everything else. So I'm going to skip some of that, but the whole idea with the for each is you create these iterators, right? And these iterators allow us to draw individual pieces here. So if we want to display a hover card, we can do that. So if we come over here to our multi-person face pile, we can add in our image here, we'll just add it to this element here. So it doesn't have to be the root element. It could be a sub element. All right, so we'll just add it here. We're going to do that same thing, default hover field. But in this case, instead of specifying an actual field, we're going to specify it using that iterator logic. So we're going to say person iterator. Again, this is a little more of an advanced scenario, but I just want to show that it works here. So preview that. And now we start to see, even though we've got two different people fields, right? Now we can see the hover cards for each of them, which is awesome. So you're not limited to just a single hover card here. You can have multiple hover cards in a single format, or you can imagine in view formatting. You might have multiple different people fields. You want to take advantage of these hover fields, right? So that's really, really cool. In fact, it's so cool, we'll save that. So now let's take a look. What else can we do? So we've got these default hover fields, which is great. And again, huge leg up from what we used to have. But what about if we want to do some kind of custom thing, right? So let's head over here where we can, not there, let's go over here. We've just got a nice kind of clean area-ish, right? And we're just going to grab this random field because it doesn't matter what's in it to us, right? And we're just going to see if we can apply some custom formats here. So we're going to say, we're going to just grab ourselves, right, an Elm type, and we're going to say that's a div. And then we're going to say, attributes. Let's make this thing an icon, right? So this is, and they don't have horse icons, so I go to my next best one, which is the cat, which I certainly like, right? And in this case, that's all we're going to do, right? We just want a cat. We're going to preview that. And we have a little cat. That's great. Let's, change it around just a little bit by adding an MS. Here, I'll just copy this class over here. I'm going to add a color and a size to this just with our class attribute here. I don't want to type that in front of you. We'll add a comma, preview that. All right, so now we've got a nice little cat, and that's cool. But if we want to do something a little extra, right, we don't just want to apply a hover card, which we could. We could apply that default hover card. Instead, we have this other option, which is custom card props. All right, so custom card props has a bunch of sub-properties, and there are two that are required. The first one is the open on event. So you have to supply this, and it has to either be click or hover, all lowercase. So in this case, we'll do click. All right, so we'll say click. And then the other required property is formatter. All right, so this is just more formats. So formatter can be anything you want in here. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say an Elm type, right, of a div, and we could have all sorts of nested children and all sorts of other things. So in this case, we're going to, add more attributes here. I'm just going to copy some of these things so we don't have to type all that in front of you. Okay, in this case, I'm going to add my attributes as another cat. We're going to make him yellow, right? We're going to make him extra big. Very exciting. And then we're going to fix my format. What are we missing? Yeah, I got to close out the formatter. And I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to just grab this whole thing because I typed it wrong. There you go. Let's preview that. So now we have this click idea, right? Ooh, I have a cat, a larger cat showing up there. So a couple things we notice is it's way over here to the right, right? How can we fix that? What are some of our options for us? So we do have several options. The first thing we could do is by default, because it's a div, right? It's taking up the whole space of that column. So we could, be a little more specific. We could add, a style of, say, 24 pixels or something like that. Let's just add that here. All right, we'll just add that in. So now it's going to be width of 24 pixels. And because we're doing a click event, I like to put the cursor to a pointer. I think that's kind of important. All right, so let's preview that. I've got a pointer. Right, now it's right next to it. So that's cool. What if I wanted to make it look a little different? Like, I don't want it to the right. I want it down below. So that's kind of the default position it goes to. But we've got a couple other options. So in our custom card props, we can also add this directional hint. Right, and by default, the value is right center. But there's a lot of other values, right? So we could say bottom center, for instance. All right, so let's try that. Add our comma. We preview that. Now when we click on it, it shows up below. All right, so it's centered on our object, right? So again, it's good that we specified a width here so the center actually looks correct. And it comes down there. Now there is another piece here, and there's about 14 different directional hints, and we'll go over those in a minute, what all those are. But we can add this beak. So I like that it's called a beak. Is beak visible? All right, and well, this is just a true or false. So in this case, by default, it's obviously not there. We preview it. Bam, look at that, we got a little beak. Woo, that's exciting. So the beak really just means pointy triangle. Makes it obvious what the thing is attached to. Right? A couple things with the beak. You can't specify that gap size. So if you're used to this UI Fabric callout element, there is a gap size. It's 8 pixels and it is not customizable right now. And you also, if you set like a MSBG color, let's say magenta, that sounds exciting. So I'm setting a background color, right? You'll notice the beak stays white. So the beak color is also not customizable. So just keep some of those things in mind, right, as you're working through some of this. But that's pretty cool still, right? So I can set all these directional hints. I can do all sorts of cool stuff. I can combine these as I needed to, right? So if I wanted to, even in here, for whatever reason, if I wanted to say default hover field, right, in this case, I'm going to say is the author field, right, just because this is not a person field. Let's preview that. Now if I click it, oh, it's actually showing down there, but let me click a higher one here. I got my screen so big. There we go. I can actually combine the two different types of hover cards, right? And I can go a little crazy with it. And in fact, you can combine your own custom cards quite a bit as well. So here I'm just going to grab one, so we don't have to watch me type all of this. All right. So if I were to bring that over a little bit, let's preview that. Now I've got my cat, right? I click it. I got another cat. I got another cat. I got another cat. Right, I can go crazy with this. So you can go all sorts of places with these different kind of custom card props here. And again, note that the directional hint is just a hint. That is a keyword there, right? You can see I've set it here to be on top center. But if I'm on, say, this one, all right, we'll see if we run out of room. Because we ran out of room, it's going to automatically position itself and move it over to the right. So they are hints, and they're a good way to go. But just keep in mind it's not a guarantee. All right? So cool. So now let's see maybe a practical use case for some of this. All right, let's head over to our Warrior Horses site. And in the past, we've shown off on our document library, right? We created this preview field here. And all we've done is we've taken a simple column. Let's see, there it is applied. And this is, if we format this column, we'll see this is actually our sample that's available here on our sample repo. That's just called our file thumbnail sample. But we can go a little bit, that's nice, that's cool. We can see a little preview of the document, right? All sorts of, there's like 270, whatever it is, document types that'll preview. And that's cool, but what if we used our custom callout to do a little more with that, right? So let me pull this up here. All right, so let's grab this and let's say custom card props on this guy. All right, so we're just gonna add our custom card props. We're going to say open on event. In this case, we're going to say hover. All right, we're going to say a directional hint. Bottom center, because we want to show it underneath. All right. And then in this case, we're just going to add our formatter. Now, I can add an image here directly, but you'll notice if I add the image directly, sometimes the previews take a little longer to load. They don't load immediately. They load after the pages. So I'm going to do a nested div. And for that, I'm just going to copy this because, again, watching me type is fun. But I'll explain what I've done here. All right. So you'll notice up here we're using our keyword @thumbnail medium. And we could certainly do an @thumbnail large. But one of the things it also allows you to do is you can specify maximum sizes, maximum widths and heights. So I'm saying, give me a 500 by 500 image, right, or up to. It's not going to distort it. And put that inside a div that's already 500 pixels, because, again, that way it positions correctly. So if we preview that. Come on now. There we go. So let's come back down here. So now we can start to see we have a nice light box effect. Maybe. That one doesn't want to load. All right, so we've got our sample PowerPoint. All right, text. We've got a Word document. And we can go all sorts of different directions with this, right? So you can imagine maybe we show the details of the preview, but we show some of the other properties of the file as well, right? We kind of list those out, and it becomes a lot better, right? It's a lot better than just a, I've got some problems with my thumbnails loading. Let's just save and reload that. But it becomes a lot more useful and a lot more functional than just a simple tiny little icon, right? By adding these hover cards, we finally have some more interactive type pieces, right? So Lightbox was one of the original requests. A lot of people want to be able to do Lightboxes, and now you can, supposedly. Now, all right, so real quick, I think I'm running out of my time here. Let's wrap it up here. So default hover field. So when you do this, you're specifying the field, right? So you grab a column reference. So if you're grabbing a person field, you don't need to specify any sub-properties like you might, because you're just specifying the field. You can add all sorts of conditions in there to make these things as dynamic as you want. And again, we showed that example of an iterator for multi-choice fields. So you can do that and do some pretty awesome stuff. Now, if you specify on the same element both the default hover field and the custom card props, the custom card props will win. So just keep it in mind. If you want to do something where you're kind of combining those out, you can. We'll skip that example. Just use a div that has some children, and then apply the different hover cards or your custom card props to the children elements, not the parent element itself. All right, that's this. And now custom card props. So again, open on vent is required, and your formatter is required. You can do click or hover. These are all the directional hints. So they're pretty much the same, right? So they're going to line up, so bottom, center, left edge, or right edge, right? So that's going to line up on the line or on the other line. With the bottoms and the tops, you got these auto edges as well, where you're saying, I don't care which edge, you pick it based on the size that's available. So there's a lot of options here. Experiment with those, but remember, it is a hint, and so things will position themselves correctly. And you notice even as things were changing, like size-wise, as images loaded in, you saw that it picked a different hint as needed. So it's pretty robust in that way. All right, and of course, is beak visible. Adds that nice little triangle, which I think is especially helpful, when it's not quite obvious which item you're looking at if you've got a fairly complex custom card. All right, finally, a couple of resources for you. All of these samples will be updated here. They're already updated. I'm just going to push it. To have examples of all of that, the last two are a little more detailed. We got custom hover cards and the default hover cards. This is some of what was presented a couple of weeks ago. But check those out. It's awesome what you can do now. You can take your format so much further with these. Very exciting stuff. And that's all I got. Woo!
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. Really awesome stuff and exciting stuff. It's great to see this level of a no-code capabilities within the list, and so really cool stuff.